You're listening to
They're going to call it a hard foul. They're going to call it a hard foul.
offering in-depth analysis on all things Boston Celtics with your hosts, Jim and Mike Quigley.
All right, we're back with another episode of Hard Foul. And last night we had surprising breaking news. Lonnie Walker, who was probably the highest rated free agent left, signed with the Celtics on an Exhibit 10 contract, which is really highly unusual. It means it's not even a non-guaranteed contract. It's just an invite to camp. And I think it's pretty surprising, Mike. I think this is a good player. He has the length of a wing. He can play both guard positions. He's improved his shooting by a ton from when he came into the league. I think he was 38% from three. A great athlete. I find it hard to believe that this was his only offer out there. Makes me wonder if there's an attitude issue. But you've never heard that before in the league. He played with the Lakers with LeBron. He played under Pop. Mike, your initial thoughts, and we have a special guest, so I'll let you introduce that too as well.
It's kind of bizarre that Lonnie Walker's here. He averaged almost 10 points a game last year, and he shot the ball pretty well. I don't know if there's something wrong with him. I don't understand. So I look at a team like Milwaukee or Denver, who I feel like they're looking for wing defenders or guys who can play the two guard and at least shoot the ball. And he couldn't even get a minimum deal. So it's good for the Celtics. I think horrible for Lonnie Walker. Because even if he makes his team, what's his role? How much playing time does he even get?
Yeah.
So like his path to making money, I just don't see it right now. But Brad Stevens strikes again. I guess that's my reaction to that. So good for the Celtics. It'll make for an interesting preseason. And I'm definitely excited to introduce our guest, my former teammate, captain of my high school basketball team, and now the current coach of Quincy High School basketball. Just a really great guy. Coach Matt Ramponi is with us today. So, Matt, we're excited to have you on the podcast. I know Jimmy's got some questions for you. I don't know if you have any initial thoughts you want to share on Lonnie Walker to get it started, but we're really excited to have you here.
Yeah, no, this is awesome, and I appreciate you guys so much. I mean, to think how far back we go, Mike, since sixth grade, presidents, and then how fast life really does go, and then obviously watching Jimmy be an animal when he was playing.
I played church league basketball against you in like 4th and 5th grade.
Right, yeah, absolutely. Which is a very
I hated you. I hated you back then.
And now there's no church basketball. There's no youth basketball. It's in the city. It's something that we're trying to really, really get back for the kids because it was so important. But no, I'm pumped to be on. I appreciate, like I said, I appreciate you guys so much. Lonnie Walker. So he did. If you don't mind reminding, he went to the University of Miami, correct?
Oh, did he?
That I don't.
I don't have access to it, but I think he did, and I think he played with the local Bruce Brown.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have that? Is that him?
I'm looking it up right now.
Or am I wrong?
No, you're right. He played with Bruce Brown at University of Miami.
Yeah, so Bruce Brown is a local Dorchester kid. He played, obviously, he won the championship with the Denver Nuggets. And when I was fortunate enough to coach with BABC AAU, a lot of those guys, Bruce Brown, Terrence Mann, all made it to the NBA. Yep. But I always followed Bruce at his career, watching him at Miami, and then seeing Lonnie, what's his name again?
Walker.
Yeah, and I thought he was he just fits the mold for the NBA wing. You know what I mean? His athleticism, his shooting, his explosiveness, his body control when he attacks the basket is super impressive. And I didn't know he averaged 10 points a game. So that does bring up, why isn't he? How did he just land with us with that 10? Was it a 10-day contract?
It's an Exhibit 10, so it's like an invite to camp. Essentially, you're a high school coach. You're telling a kid to come try out, but there's no
so that's interesting
on the team. Usually you do that to the summer league guys, and then they go to me.
Mm-hmm.
So
that is interesting that he. So I don't know if there is some underlining stuff there, but I guess that's what's good when you have a team that just came off a championship that they might get a guy like that to fall in line. You know what I mean? Maybe he'll mature, and timing is everything in life, athletically or however you want to. Yeah. and maybe
He's only
like Mike said.
25. That's the
Yeah, I
crazy
mean,
part.
that's so
It feels like
young.
he's been in the league forever, but these guys are so young. They're all just, well, I'm getting so old. That's kind of
Yeah.
the problem now.
Yeah. Well, aren't we all? But yeah, that's my two. I think that's a great. I mean, there's no harm in picking up and giving that guy a shot. When he's already
No,
produced.
no, I don't think so at all. And if last offseason, he was a guy who wanted the Celtics to target in free agency. He went to the
Wow.
Nets, and which made sense because there was plenty of playing time. And then there was actually rumors around the trade deadline that the Celtics were targeting him then. So there's always been interest. Sometimes, you wonder if there's other things at play here where it's only an Exhibit 10, things that we may not know about. Maybe there's a favor for an agent. Maybe this is a way to, pump up his tires some way, somehow that I'm not seeing. But it would be great if he ends up here, if they keep him out of camp. Matt, I want to get right into. I definitely want to do a little bit something different on this pod than we typically do. Usually, strictly Celtics. It's strictly the NBA. So towards the end of the pod, I want to talk about coaching high school basketball, coaching in a city like Quincy, Massachusetts, and also AAU basketball, which has evolved, so much, even from when I was coaching back in the first part of this century, that first decade, to where it is today. But before we go there, the Celtics this season, obviously, great season, championship season. Joe Mazzulla is the head coach. What can you take from the Celtics seasons that you can bring to your kids, teaching wise? And then your thoughts on just Joe Mazzulla. You said you have a story with his family that I think me and Mike are both interested in. We haven't heard it yet. And how, both his style and play and his unique way of really communicating and dealing with his players at a professional level. It's not something that I think we've been used to seeing.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, to start, I was fortunate enough to be one of the many coaches during a period of time for BABC AAU basketball with Leo Papio, which is one of the top AAU programs in the country. And Joe Mazzulla's younger brother Justin was on the team. And he was a great, great kid. And his father was always around. And his father would always, here and there would come up and say certain things to me because I was a young coach. And when you're around kids at that level, you're doing anything you can just to have a voice, really. You know what I mean? And his father would go out of his way to say some things that would really encourage me, things that I never will forget. And sometimes Justin and I will still message each other, here and even throughout this season on Instagram, just little things, you know what I mean? Like, hey, thinking about, seeing them on the stage with Joe Mazzulla, with his brother winning that championship, and then knowing how much basketball. I mean, his father is a huge figure in basketball, especially in Rhode Island. I mean, he was an unbelievable player himself, but, so just to see that and have that dynamic, and then getting to know Justin a little bit in that period of time, and then the dad, and then I actually loved Joe Mazzulla at West Virginia.
Yeah.
Before the Souls, I thought he was an absolute dog, just like tough, undersized, not super skilled. And guys like that do tend to be like evolve into coaching. And there's a line that Joe Mazzulla used this year that hit home to me so much. And I think it does get lost. And I think, Jim, you will like this as a coach big time. And that's why you had such a big impact on a lot of kids is, you are at the end of the day, you're trying to evolve people. You're trying to connect with people. And that, I'm not a basketball coach. I'm connecting with people. I'm trying to make them the best version of themselves. And that's something I think Joe actually has pride in. So people, as a coach, you're going to make mistakes. You know what I'm saying? And I think for me, all the time. And people are always going to have a voice, even as a high school coach. Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do, and you let it in one ear out the other. You listen to some people and take, advice for others, but you do have to fail to really learn to become great. And I think Joe has really accepted that. And that, I mean, he wouldn't be in this position, especially with like a Brad Stevens, who's so good, if he wasn't showing all those signs prior to it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think he's going to be a phenomenal coach. And the way he connects with the guys, you hear, I'm always watching videos on them on how they talk about him. His interview with JJ Redick was awesome on JJ Redick's podcast. I don't know if you guys saw that.
I did. Yeah.
Yeah, and he just seems very genuine, but very disciplined, and he knows when to like make it light, and then he knows to when to hold you accountable. And those are all things you as a coach you have to do at any level, but and just as a person, you have to know when to like buckle up, and then you have to know when, hey, you could be a little loose right now. You know what I'm saying? And I think he has a great handle on that for a young coach, and I was very impressed with so much of how he's handled the situation he was put in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No.
I mean,
Go ahead, Mike.
it wasn't a good situation other than that he was coaching a great team. He was taking over for somebody they idolized
Yeah.
that left on really, really bad terms. And he's young, really young coach. So it wasn't, in my eyes, there was a lot of reasons why it could have not have been successful. And just to see the adjustments he made as a coach on the floor last year, outside of being able to connect with NBA players, which you brought up, Matt, but being able with the in-game adjustments that we saw in the playoffs last year, I thought he was just doing a tremendous job with the use of timeouts, as an example. Was there anything you saw as a coach that you saw growth in him from his first year to his second year with the on the court stuff?
Yeah, I think. I mean, I don't know if it's grow. I think because you're always growing and evolving with every game as a coach. Certain little things. I did think the timeout stuff was because everybody. No, again, any level you coach, you call a timeout. If it works, great. If it doesn't, why'd you call that timeout? If you don't, you know what I mean? If you don't call the timeout. So I think people do get lost. Coaches are involved in the game too, meaning like if you're on the court, stand on the sideline, like you're in the game. So, and if you're not there, you don't feel that, you know what I mean? Like that presence, you know what I'm saying? So I think he went a lot off his feel. And, when you have Jason Tatum with the ball, people would say call timeout, but he's your best player. You have to trust that the ball's in the guy's hands that you want it in. And, you call a timeout, the defense can set up something to keep that ball out of his hands. So, maybe ride with that. And sometimes that doesn't work. So, but I did think this year he was calling timeouts, especially later on, sooner. You know what I mean? Sooner within the game. So, like, if a team was going on a run, he would call a timeout quicker later on this season, which I thought was a really good move, as opposed to trying to let the guys or trusting his guys would figure it out. And then, you know what I mean? If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think it definitely makes sense. And I think you saw, you brought up just a lot of great points about, coming from a basketball family and then being willing to fail. And this is a guy that, you're talking about moving up the ladder so quickly. And the learning curve was sharp. You go from playing under Bob Huggins down in West Virginia, which is
I love him.
Worlds different than the NBA. He spent a year in Maine, then a couple of years, one under Brad, one under Ime, and here we are. And the thing that, my problem with the Celtics going into last season is that I didn't believe they, maybe you don't love their style of play where, they're so, I know there's some people that don't love it. I don't mind it, where it's so wide open and they're pushing the ball, a lot of threes, but it's about the shot more than the three. It's about what shot they're getting out of their offense. But I always felt like when it got into kind of nut crunching time, for lack of a better term, they would lose conviction in their style. And it would be a lot of isolation, and it would be, a lot of dribbling the ball out. Unfortunately, a lot of that had to do with Marcus Smart, and, Tatum and Brown were also, implicit in that as well. I thought this season, and this has to be coaching to some extent, and it has to be also Tatum accepting, you got to play a different way as well. I thought they had a lot more conviction in who they were. And you saw that down the stretch, especially in those Pacers games, where, it was a lot of drive and kick. I don't think we'll ever forget the play where Tatum drives and draws Miles Turner, and he's able to make that behind his back pass to a wide open Al Horford, and they hit the three, and they end up coming back and winning that game. I see that if that was last year against the Heat, I feel like they're waiting until 6-7 seconds on the shot clock, and then turn the ball over. And so you talk about this, not be afraid to fail, not being afraid to learn. I part of it is he had a full season, off-season training camp to get that message across.
Mm-hmm.
But the message, I think, was delivered. But more importantly, it's easy to deliver a message, as you know, Matt. It's another thing to get your players to buy in.
Yeah.
And they bought in. And that to me, that's the coaching aspect of it.
Yeah, and that's the relationship building too. I mean, some of these old guys like Pop, like they have that pedigree, or even Coach Fish, from Marshall, like they've been doing it for so long. They can kind of walk in with Jim, and that respect and that understanding is already there. Where a younger coach, you do have to really put time into developing relationships. I don't care what level you're at. If you want to be successful as a young coach, you have to be willing to get to know your players on a personal level. And it seems that Joe has really, that's like a big part of who he is. I've never had a conversation with him, but like I said, getting, somewhat to know his father and his brother, that was something that now you hear him talk, you can kind of see that, you know what I mean? So was probably instilled in him as a young kid too. But no, I mean, everything, it's coaching. It's just, it's an awesome thing to do. It's very difficult. And you're always going to be criticized even when you win championships. And Joe seems like he doesn't care about that. And I think that's an awesome characteristic to have.
Yeah, no, it really is. It really is. So the second part of that question, Matt, was what can you take from, a season? Is there anything? Sometimes I feel like it's, coaches try to do this and it comes off as, disingenuous. Is there anything you can take from a professional basketball season that won a championship that you could say to your team, all right, look, this is how they got it done? Or are they just so talented that your kids are going to see right through that?
Yeah. Well, if anything, your kids, that's all they do is watch NBA. So that's why our kids chuck up so many threes, and our shooting percentage certainly isn't what theirs are. But I think my biggest thing that you take away, and I mean it wholeheartedly, is that I'll keep going back to it, is how impressive it was to watch how he relates to the players, and now and how much time he spends with them outside of basketball. And for me, now I've done that with my team.
Yeah. So
like my kids, we have a cookout together outside of the gym at my pool. Awesome. We go to we go to a Boston College basketball game together, and actually Kenny Francis, who's the assistant AD there, he gives us a tour of the whole facility. And then we go to Stonehill. So like I've really bought into, and I've always had that in me, like feeling like that was very important as a coach.
Yeah.
But now seeing how and hearing Joe talk and hearing Jason Tatum talk about their relationship, that's something that I've certainly taken. But when it comes to like the in-game stuff with basketball at that level, I certainly talk about a lot to my kids with, you watch Jason Tatum struggle. Everybody's going to struggle. Basketball is an imperfect sport. Nobody's going to be perfect and make the right decisions every time, but you have to move on from it. And, as young aspiring high school athletes that want to reach those milestones or get to where those guys are, they have to understand that they're going to fail probably more than they succeed. And when you see those guys like Jason Tatum fail, but then show up, or Jaylen Brown, I mean, think of how much he's been through. And then for him to come out and have the year, like that just shows, it helps a coach like me prove to the younger kids that you have to be resilient. You have to be mentally strong. You have to be a teammate, and you got to keep working,
Absolutely. I love the extracurricular stuff you're doing with the team outside of basketball, bringing them to college games. You guys go see Quincy College play at all with Doug coaching over there?
Yeah, Doug actually ran with the kids the other night because we do open. I have the gym open at night for the kids to go in and play. And so, yes, we do go watch them play. They're actually going to be they're going to be doing the college 3-point line at Quincy High School. So
Okay.
So now Quincy College will be playing at Quincy High, which I think is
great.
great. Yeah, I mean, the kids will probably have a hard time adjusting to that, but I think for basketball wise, for the city, for Quincy College, for Dougie and what he's building over what he's doing, I think it's going to be great. So yeah, we
might be a home court advantage thing for you going forward too.
it absolutely, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And but yeah, no, I'm excited for it. But yeah, we try to do so much stuff. I mean, we do stuff for Father Bills. We do those free youth camps over the summer. Just the more time you spend like with structured basketball and outside the court, I feel like definitely helps bring, you relate more to the kids and build those relationships and trust.
And you need to do that. Yeah. And I think a lot of people that don't work at like a mid-sized city like Quincy or some of these even, gateway cities in the Commonwealth, like, New Bedford or Brockton, that are, even have some tougher circumstances. They don't understand that all the different variables you need to deal with as a coach. Before this pod started, you talked about a young man coming over from Brazil, I believe it was, who had never played before, but he's got this great athletic ability, but there's language barriers, there's teaching the game, there's, a lot of times you got to make sure these kids have their sneakers on. Did they have a meal? And from my experience, and I imagine it's the same way, is you can't really talk to and coach every kid the same way. You got to almost meet them where they are, because
100%.
the circumstances are so, the variables are wild.
Yeah.
And then I'll hand it back over to you in a sec. But then in the conference that you guys play in, you're playing a lot of teams on the South Shore that are much more affluent, and they've probably been playing together since the first grade.
That's great.
Yeah, and they've always had they've had warm-ups and sneaking everything since the first grade, and there's not a lot of worried about. Did they eat before the game? Do they have their sneakers? Do they have a ride to the gym? All those different things. So I guess for someone like you, Matt, teaching in a city like Quincy, how much of it is basketball? How much is it the attention to the other details? And I think the stuff you just talked about kind of ties right into it. Is really great.
No, and so last year it got to like the 17th game where Brendan Cunningham, my assistant coach, also in the school system and a Quincy High grad, was when we were like, wow, now I feel like we're really coaching basketball. Because prior to that, it was really teaching like we came into a situation and the coaches prior, unbelievable coaches, great guys.
Great guys.
Like great person, great guy. And devoted a large part of his life, Coach Perry, to Quincy and Quincy basketball. And, you come in, the season was canceled the year before because of, fighting and whatever. So
that situation. Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. So we had a lot of issues, like even last summer, just, you're playing at the Branch Outdoor League and there's technical fouls. There's just the behavior, how to play basketball, like with an edge, but not cross that line. Certain things like that took a long time for us to really get a handle on.
With some kids that are already pissed off walking into the gym, right?
Exactly. So you have a kid that, he's working 25 hours a week at McDonald's. He's maybe not doing the best he can in school. So then that starts becoming a stressor. You brought up the sneakers. Like we ended up buying all the kids sneakers last year because a lot of our kids, the sneakers they were wearing were, they got holes in them. You know what I mean? And so we ended up going that route. So that's a whole other story about trying to raise money. But you do definitely have adversities where kids are walking in the door with things going on at home, or even getting to school can be a huge issue. So it takes a while to get to. It took a while to get to where we wanted to get to as coaches, but that's a part of the struggle. Like you have to embrace that. If you really want to. Of course, I want to win basketball games more than anybody, but I also want to really see my kids succeed in life, and that's a big part of putting that extra time and effort into getting to know them and developing trust with them. Does take a lot of time, but to answer your question, Jim, and you did it for so long too. You think about the Reggie Caesars and the thing,
Mm.
a lot of our kids and other communities have harder times than us too. But within our league, we certainly have more adversities when to get to even the basketball aspect takes us a little bit longer than those other schools we play against.
It's really nice to hear you saying this stuff, Matt. And I work in a city similar to, obviously I grew up in Quincy.
Mhm.
Just working in Manchester with the youth out here, you can see that they don't always have an adult, even in the schools, that they can connect with. And so to hear the things you're saying, that you're really getting to know these youth beyond basketball, I think is really important, because some young people from these communities, especially coming from other countries, it really hurts me to see that they can go weeks or months without an adult in their life that's just telling them that they're good, that
Mhm.
they're worth something. And I think the basketball part of it is great, and I hope you win games, but just that you're a man in their life as an adult that is doing things that shows them, like, this is what love actually looks like, for
Mhm.
some kids who may not always have it, or that their parents just aren't available because they got to work at night. They got to work
Mhm.
so many jobs
Yep.
just to survive here. Um, it really means a lot, especially knowing you as a kid and seeing what you're doing now. I'm really happy that you bring that part of it to as a coach. I don't think that was a big part of Quincy High's culture when we were students there playing
Mhm.
basketball. I think it was more just about the basketball. This is an added piece that I think that community needs. And I think Quincy's really lucky to still have you there. So
Mhm.
thanks for sharing that here on the pod.
Yeah, no, and just like you guys too, being a product of Quincy and Quincy Public Schools, it means a little bit more, I think, too, when you go through it. And guys that we played with that had certain struggles, but they were able to really, as a team, we depended on each other. Maybe at the time we didn't know it, but now
Hmm.
being older, I think you realize it. And a lot of these kids, what's different now is that you have kids moving in from Quincy, so they don't understand that
Right.
the culture of what Quincy basketball was, and really trying to rely a lot on the alumni. Like we're having a lot of alumni coming that will hit me up and say, "Hey, can I come by?" And that stuff you could start seeing it mean more and more to our kids.
Hmm.
And that does help. But yeah, I mean, even like me as a dean where I have to discipline. So it took a while for my kids to trust me, to understand that if I have to discipline you, due to like other things outside of like I said, spending time with them, getting to know with them, having conversations with them outside of just disciplining them, and made them see that, hey, this guy does care more than care about me. He's not just trying to tell me what to do and how to do it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
And that's very relatable. That's basketball, in my opinion. That's like stuff that Joe Mazzulla talked about.
Right.
Like you're really
Right.
trying to do stuff as a person. I'm not a basketball coach. I'm here to try to help people, and basketball is kind of the engine that gives us the opportunity to do that.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think that's right. You know, I I remember there's so much that I look back on that I'm just so fond of the memories from, especially from coaching. But one of the things that that I tried my best to install. I don't know how successful I always was, but my favorite thing to say would be believe in yourself just even half as much as I believe in you, and you're
Mhm.
going to have success. And it gets back to this idea of their own self-worth beyond basketball, and I would obviously say that relating to the floor, what's going on to the floor, but I think it had more important impacts elsewhere. And that, you know, you're in a point now, Matt, where you're doing all this great stuff. You got your first year behind you. There's a little bit of culture that you're starting to grow there. And,
Mhm.
I think, for you, for Brendan, for Tuck, the coaching staff over there, I think you guys will start to see some rewards, and maybe that's different than they are in other communities. Um, how you measure that, maybe it's always in wins, but there's certainly other aspects to this that are just as important. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys are going to do, and I definitely want to get down and see you guys a share, and see you guys play, and be one of those alumni walking into the gym.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we're gonna actually do an alumni game, December 21st.
Oh God.
Yeah, it's a Saturday. Yeah, right. Hey, I'm getting my hip replaced actually in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Oh
So
Jesus.
imagine that, 39 years old. Um, So either way, so I won't be playing. But that being said, but the night before, December 20th, we play Plymouth South at home. Plymouth South is always a very strong team in our league as of late, and it's going to be an alumni night too. So like there'll be a flyer that we send out like on
Nice.
social media, inviting alumni to that game, and then whoever wants to play the next day, we have a few hours and T-shirts and things of that nature, just to try to rebuild it in that sense, But never any pressure to anybody, Everybody does what they can,
You ever put the Walpole tape on for these guys so they can see you in
what's
action?
You know what's funny? So last year, it's actually speaking of Plymouth South, they were one of the top teams, them and North Quincy, really, for the last few years at least. And they came to us earlier in the season. They put it to us, and I felt like we just didn't play the way we were capable of, and still learning each other and still learning me. I mean, even my kids took a little bit of time to learn my personality as a coach, like my intensity and how it was just love. It wasn't, me mad at them or upset at them. But so it took some time. So we ended up going down there and playing them at their place. And we found, I forget who found it. I forget who found the news clipping, because it was on the news, the Walpole game. And I ended up showing the kids like what that experience was. It was like the 3-minute news clip, and they were fired up. They enjoyed it. Obviously, seeing us wear our baggy shorts. Now everything they wear is like extra small, and they're so much bigger than us. But yeah, the baggy shorts, the high socks, the arm sweatbands, like all that stuff. And then we are beating, the powerhouse Walpole, and we end up going down to Plymouth South and beating them in overtime at their place. So
there you go.
That was a huge win for us. And we had a couple, we came in, they didn't. I think Quincy won one game in the last prior 3 years, and then we won 7 this past year, but we lost 3 games in overtime.
Wow.
We had so many tight games, and just to learn how to win. And Jimmy, I'm sure you remember this too. Like learning how to win, people don't realize how hard winning is. Do you know what I mean? Especially and I won't ramble on, but I got an opportunity to coach at North Quincy girls.
Yep.
Yeah.
2 days before the season started, they asked me 3 days, if I would coach, because they didn't have a coach. We ended up going 24-0. So I was around a culture at that point, but I also had, in my opinion, the best basketball player to ever play in Quincy, boys and girls. Her name's Orla Gormley, who's going to be at the University of Providence as a freshman this year on a full ride.
Wow.
So I was very lucky in that sense, but you got to see the two different things. So there was a group of girls, especially this one, all she did was win. And to see that mindset, and then to come into Quincy where they were they didn't even know what winning was or how to win. Like we're a good team. We have really good kids, but knowing how to win and feeling like you're a winner is much difficult than people think,
Yeah.
And believing it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And having the people around you believe. I mean, we even in school last year before the season started, I'd have kids walking, oh, Mr. Ramponi, basketball team is weak. You guys are weak. The program's weak, within your own peers. So this is the stuff that my kids are hearing, and they'd be in the, the very first game we played Barnstable, place was packed. And I tell you, it really dictated a lot of our season, but we ended up losing in overtime on a buzzer beater. We were up 2, and talk about coaching. Like I probably should have fouled the kid to put him at the free throw line. I'm sorry. We were up 3 at the end of regulation. My best player at the free throw line, misses 2 free throws for us. He just needed 1 for us to go up 4 with 5 seconds left. He missed both. I should have fouled and put them at the line.
You're going to be thinking about this for the rest of your life.
Absolutely. I let it play. Because I didn't want them to draw up a play. Because my kids, the IQ of the team wasn't. I was nervous if they drew up a play, my kids wouldn't really be able to in-game adjust defensively. Because at some point as players, you can't depend on it. You got to be able to, make those adjustments. And I was nervous we couldn't. And the kid goes down and just drills a 3 at half court, ties it up, took all the air out of the gym. my best player goes out in overtime. It was just like, we end up losing by 2. And that really dictated a lot of our season, to be honest with you. But, yeah, I mean, that's
People
part
think,
of the game.
yeah, people think that Ted Lasso show's goofy, but I do.
Oh, I love it.
I love it, and I love the
Great show.
Believe.
right. And I think just so much of that in sports is just so true. It's like you're believing in yourself that the kid going to the free throw line under a certain circumstance next year with that under his belt, he would probably make them, or at least make 1 or 2 to seal the game now, because it's a different mindset line than he had then.
And that belief system and that toughness. I think that speaks to who you were as a player, Matt. Like speaking of that Walpole game, I couldn't appreciate what was happening during the game because the game was so stressful.
Yeah.
Because Walpole was so good that it was always, are we really going to win? Is how I was feeling with how tall they were and how big they were and how small we were. Like we were just small. We were small players, right?
We were down 9 at halftime too.
Yeah, and so it was the next morning I think we called it morning session or something. We had a morning homeroom before school actually started, and the highlights. They were playing the highlights, and it was just you. It was 1-3 after another was the highlights and somebody asked me in class, like, did anybody else score? Yeah. And I was like, I don't think so.
Yeah,
I was like, I think it's just Matt.
Everybody was trying to stop Doak. So I was just by myself. I was very, you have a player like Doak out there, it makes it easy.
They're all focused. And he missed big free throws. I do remember him missing some big free throws in that game.
He never misses free throws.
Yeah.
Talk about the most. Talk about Luke. I always tell Doak, and you're gonna laugh at this. Both of you will laugh at this, Jimmy too. I'll text every time I see Luka Doncic. I text Doak and Danny Kelly, and I say, Luka Doncic. You guys were both Luka Doncic outside of being 6'9" or whatever. But I don't know if you guys agree with that. But you watch
Danny Kelly.
Yeah.
Well, see, Jimmy could probably speak more of that. But I felt like Doak's game matches Luka Doncic so much outside of the size, but we won't have to get into that. But that was a special memory. And that's what I preach to the kids too. At the end of the day, it's all about these memories.
They were great high school players. Probably not quite as skilled as Luka.
No.
But so AAU basketball, Matt, I'm glad you brought up BABC. I think that's people that listen to this podcast, that's something they'll recognize as just being the preeminent kind of program, has been for decades. A lot of great players. And, even back when I was coaching, although AAU was starting to evolve, but certainly when we were younger, AAU was really designed in a lot of ways for guys that were going to play at the next level.
100%, Jim.
And so, and I think that part of it that still exists is great. The high level of basketball, I officiated for a few years, and when I officiated AAU games, when I would get the high level games, it'd be amazing. I'd barely call anything. The game would just flow. It would be great. What's interesting to me now, and I don't know if it's good or bad. I really struggle with this. Everyone's playing AAU now, and it's become a basketball factory in some ways. And I would see a lot of bad basketball. I'd see a lot of bad coaches. I'd see a lot of bad behavior. And then on the flip side, I'd see with the high level teams, you'd see just the opposite, right? You'd see a lot of great stuff. But it's now starting very, very young, like with teams as young as 8, 9 years old, 3rd, 4th grade. And then you're obviously up to the high school level. As a coach, how do you view that? Because you got to look at some players in your program and think, well, you're not really going to get much there, and then you're going to look at other ones that say that it's a perfect place for you. So,
you're meaning like the AAU program they choose?
AAU program they choose, or is an AAU just, let's say if you're middle of the line, you got your role player for varsity player, is it even an effective place for them to better their game, where they're probably not going to be on a top level team, what I mean?
No, everything you just said, I completely agree with. And if you look at some of those pictures that we have on that alumni page, like Leo Papil will show up to some of our morning workouts.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I mean, he's still working with the Los Angeles Clippers. He's obviously a pioneer of AAU basketball
Yep.
on ESPN. I mean, I think 1978 was when he started BABC, or 1979, and Patrick Ewing, all those guys. AAU was absolutely established for that high level basketball, even growing up for us
Yeah.
and
Yep.
our generation. And I thought that was that was great. And like you just said, it's a different ball game, as it should be. And those kids that are at that level, that have those abilities, they should have that venue to play against each other, on that stage during the off season. But it certainly has come, for me, in order to get better at basketball, you have to play basketball, but you definitely have to make sure you're playing it the right way in the right venue. I know I just said that word, but I think it's super watered down. I think it's a big, big, big money grab for a lot of programs. Kids are playing astronomical money to just play, 7 games on a Saturday. And then it also trickles into, like, some kids don't understand that losing sucks, because they
Yeah, that's a
play
great point.
7 games on a
Yep.
Saturday.
Great point.
Oh, I'm down 10 points right now.
But I play in an hour anyway.
I play in an hour anyway. And it's like, to me, that trickles over when you're not a high level player. Because if you're a high level player, your mindset's you're just programmed differently. So you don't operate.
Yeah.
You don't operate. But if you're a high school athlete that's looking to have a successful high school career, and develop that wire in your brain to understand that losing sucks and you should never be accepted, it does make that come out of them a little bit more, if that makes sense.
Hey,
Yeah,
Matt, I just want to say thanks for coming on. I have to deal with a young person right now, so I have to get off, guys.
No problem,
I'll let
man.
you guys finish up the pod, but it was really great to have you on, and I hope to get to some games this year. Thanks, guys.
All right, we'll see you, Michael.
Yeah, we'll wrap up here soon too.
No, I got time.
The last thing, so from when I officiated, it was, you talk about the losing aspect, and it's something I should have thought about more. But and I don't know what's better, because we weren't obviously being coached when we were younger, or even back when I was coaching. But you would show up to a park, which were typically always filled, and if you lost, you had to wait a long time before you got back on the court, and then you had to shoot your way onto the court too. So you had to earn it, right? You had to earn it, where this is now parents just paying the boat. And so we talked about the coaching, and again, higher levels are usually pretty good, even with some of the younger programs, they're usually pretty good. But part of the reason I actually walked away from officiating, and I walked away from AAU before that, is I just couldn't take these guys constantly, not just yelling at me, but yelling at their kids with, not even coaching, things like just saying, let's go, or what are you doing? To me, that's not coaching.
Right.
And I just couldn't take it anymore. And the play would be bad, there'd be fouling, but I didn't feel like the things that were important to be corrected were interested in being corrected. And do you see, so I don't know if you've gotten this at all, but do you have players that have gone off and played in different programs that maybe aren't the best programs for AAU come back to you that have developed bad habits or different attitudes that otherwise they're trying to install?
Yeah, I won't name the programs, but without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. You know what I mean? And I think it goes back to, some of them, you pay a certain amount of money to play, and then you're getting all these minutes on a shitty team, on a crappy team, crappy program, playing in these crappy tournaments, and you're not ready to really play high school basketball, but you think you are, because you're playing in these, you're paying $1,500 to play on a program that's really there just to collect your money, and a dad's coaching that never really coached before. And then you're getting this false, like, hey, I've already put in the work, I should be playing for you. Well, I played AAU all season, and I averaged 12 points a game, and we won all these tournaments and all. And then it starts that banter back and forth. And then I'm having a conversation with the parent respectfully, just saying, you know what, that's fine, that's great, you had that, but I don't think you're ready to play at the varsity level. You know, you got to keep work, which is, I'm never telling the kid you're not going to be ready. I'm saying you got to keep working. And it's like, well, no, I already played AAU, and so it's certainly a different dynamic. It's brought in a different dynamic of coaching the youth right now is the influx of AAU. But I actually don't have a lot of kids that play AAU because of the cost of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I
Too
don't have
prohibitive. Yeah.
and I don't have the kids that are at that level where they're playing for free or half the cost. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
I probably have 3 out of the whole program that play AAU. And for those 3, they're in pretty good programs. Actually, one is Coach Brett. Remember Coach Brett?
Oh yeah. 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 He
Yeah,
runs
so
a nice little thing right now. Yeah.
he
Yeah.
is. He just
Yeah.
retired as a teacher
Yeah.
because it's a nice little thing. And but you know, a guy like him, he's teaching these kids. He's not,
Yeah.
you know, they have skills nights, they do all this, you know, he's going above and beyond to be, because he's a coach at heart and a teacher at heart. So a program like that, you might not go and play in the EYBL sponsored by Nike in California, but you're going to be taught the game of basketball and things that are certainly going to help. So, you know, depending on who you're with and who you trust, and obviously parents can be a difficult aspect of that too, like just not kind of irrational
Yeah.
thinking, you
Yeah.
know, and that's
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
kid. And it's that stuff's hard too, because of course parents love their kid, and it just could just bring a tough conversation down the line if you're not in a good AAU program. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So
But yeah, yep.
it's August 29th. I think kids don't realize that in a blink of an eye, we're going to be in November, and then a blink in the eye, the season's going to be over, and then all of a sudden they're going to be walking to get the diploma. It's like these things all happen fast.
Mhm.
Now, hypothetically, what would you, since the MIA says you can't coach your kids, they have this stupid rule, you know, in the off season. So that's a rule. It's a dumb rule. It needs to be changed. I think, especially for communities like yours.
Yeah.
But hypothetically, if you were in front of your team right now and your hypothetical team, what would you tell them they need to be doing on August 29th to get ready for the season? If they're listening right now, what would your message be to them?
Yeah. My message to them always is you have to make sure that you're preparing now for the season. And that means you're getting the best shape you possibly can. You know, and I stress doing it together, not doing it as an individual. Like a lot of I have great leadership right now on my team where they get together and they do their own workouts. And I have guys that either we have to pay through booster money that bring them into the gym and they do workouts. Like they're putting in the time to their body, and also their skill set. And as you know, I'm a big advocate for kids practicing dribbling all the time. And you don't need money to do that. You just need a ball. And I have 70 of them, and my kids all have a ball that they take home and they can work up ball handling. So it's ball handling. I stress that because ball handling provides more confidence in basketball, and basketball really is confidence. So it's ball handling, making sure you're in great shape, and top priority is making sure they get their academics in order as the school year starts. Because I don't care how good you are, if you're not eligible, you can't play. You know, so it's those 3 things: is your body, your mind, and your academics. Those 3 things.
We certainly have stories of great players who weren't being able to finish or
and
didn't get on the floor for different reasons.
He's been great. Yeah.
We certainly
He
know
talked about that, you know.
Yeah, I'm sure you have. We're going to wrap this up with the Celtics kind of bow. We talked earlier what you could bring to your players. Just all of a sudden, it just came to me when you talk about development, working as a team, and everything else. I think the Celtics actually have players, and I think Jaylen Brown's a great example of. I don't think Jaylen Brown was really an NBA player when he came into the league. He had an NBA body, he had NBA potential, but the skill set was there. But the development certainly wasn't. He wasn't as polished as Jason Tatum. He had to work on his ball handling. He needed to improve his shooting. He needed off the dribble, playmaking, understanding team defense. All that he did not do well. You know, his first year, and then he made, and every year since. When we talk about player development, he's one of my favorite examples in the NBA because every single year he's found something to get better at. And, you know, I think, you know, recent memory is always the best thing to draw back on. You look at what he did in the conference finals against Miami, where he was a turnover machine. His handle was really, really loose. He would be
Yes.
tricked into going into traps and then not knowing how to react to those double teams and those traps, and into bad situations. And then if you watch him this year, he's handled. It's still not perfect, but it's a lot tighter than it has been. He
Yeah.
doesn't put himself in those bad situations. He understands playing off the ball and the advantages that come from that.
Mhm.
MVP of the conference finals, MVP of the NBA finals, and I just think, talk about putting in the work and understanding what everything means and believing in yourself, because there's a lot of guys that come into the league. There's a lot of skilled players at high school that the ability is there, but they don't do the extra stuff that gets them to the point that we envision them in coaches.
Mhm.
And I think probably Brown, if we're looking at as a good example of the kind of show players, is, he could have been a guy that was out of the league in 3 years very easily.
Mhm.
Instead, he's the NBA Finals MVP.
Mhm. No, and I think it's funny too, because it goes back to what you asked at the beginning of the podcast is, what could I say to my team that I learned from, or what I see professional basketball, and when the ball handling was a big aspect of it, and Jaylen Brown was a huge, learning lesson where you could actually see, and if you actually study him and watch him with his ball handling last year, a lot of those moments where he's attacking, the elbows and his head is down and he's not changing levels, that's when the ball was getting taken from him, or he would literally dribble into somebody, and that happens at high school. So then you get to see him now where he's actually changing levels, meaning he's up straight, and then all of a sudden he'll change levels to get lower, which gives him more control of the ball. Like, it's very, no matter what level basketball is or where it's played, it's still just basketball. You know what I mean? It's a very simple sport if you do those little things, and it does take work. You know what I mean? And to see him evolve, and it's just special. And I think, and one of your agenda on this thing about, are they going to repeat? I think what has happened this summer is, without a doubt, a lit a fire under his ass and
Yeah.
Jason Tatum's ass, where, these guys, like we talked about a minute ago, those high level guys, they're programmed differently. So, you know what I mean? So their program is, and how I think it, they're ready to bust some heads, man. They're not, they're out to, they don't even, they probably already forgot they won the championship. They're out there working and getting to see Jaylen Brown, how far he's come. Like, he took it personal, and
Yeah,
I
he
think you
does
do
take it
have,
personal. Yeah.
yeah, and you got to you don't want to take it too personal and let your feelings and emotions get in the way, but you definitely need to take it personal when you feel like you're getting slighted as an elite athlete. And I think he is. I think Jason Tatum is, and I think we're absolutely going to repeat. I don't think it's going to be easy. Um, but I think Brad Stevens, along with Joe Mazzulla, I think they're going to dial it up, and I think we're going to go on and do this thing again because of how they were treated this summer, which is funny to say, you know?
I think you're right. I think they got a real chance. Hopefully
Yeah.
they can do this again. I think that's going to happen. I think Quincy High is going to get back into the MIA tournament this
Ah,
year. That's my prediction for you guys, and
yeah.
I'm looking forward to watching these. And I can't wait to get down. I didn't have the opportunity to get up there last year, but I'm going to make it a point to come up and see you guys. And I've been shooting around, so maybe I'll play a minute and a half during
The
the
alumni, yeah.
alumni game. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, who knows who shows up, but I can tell you, it does take a village. And as you know, Quincy, when you get that, rejuvenate that culture that was instilled us as kids, where you actually had pride, like we say pride every day, and we explain to the kids what that means. It's not only basketball, but take pride in yourself as a person, as a teammate, as a son, as a student, and basketball player. Like, that's what we're really trying to promote. And it takes them to see alumni to really see, like, hey, this is what I could do. And that we're very lucky to be in the community we're in, and it's fortunate to be in the position I'm in, for sure. And I'm very lucky.
Yeah, and thanks a lot, Matt. I really appreciate it. This has been a great pod, and let's do it again. Real
Absolutely.
soon.